And the Masters of the Universe.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is James Etalk and welcome to yet another official He-Man and the Masters of the Universe YouTube episode commentary. I really do need to find a way to shorten this introduction, don't I? The episode you're about to watch with me is Disappearing Act. It was the third episode, one that the writers tackled almost immediately, because as soon as the dual identity comes up, the first thing writers do is, how can we have it so the character Prince Adam is in a position where he cannot become the most powerful man in the universe? So what you do, you ditch the Sword of Power. And this is one of the few episodes of the series, because it does happen again and again, in which Prince Adam happens to lose the Sword of Power. And often, as is the case with this episode, the reason for Adam having the Sword of Power out in the first place, at the point he loses it, is absolutely mind-boggling. It's like, why have you got the sword out? Why have you taken the Sword of Power out? Adam, you a damn fool. And now for something really geeky. If you look at this episode title card, the title of the episode, Disappearing Act, noticed recently, never appears in season 2. It never shows up on a title card, and it's up at Snake Mountain, and much like the Cosmic Comet episode and some of these earlier episodes, it's the evil Skeletor and the evil Beastman, as opposed to the somewhat comical versions that would appear in later seasons. Because if this was a season 2 episode, Skeletor for some reason would be angry at Beastman, and Beastman would inexplicably just fall over or something. I mean, if you want to compare their relationship, and yes, I'm using the word relationship, to their appearances in the show, as the script calls it, but listen very carefully to the voices.
I've never seen it this hot. Elmish, look! The volcano is erupting!
Even though Lou Scheimer voices both characters, I honestly think that their voices have been reversed, because the elder sounding of the two gentlemen doesn't look like the elder of the two gentlemen, if that makes sense. See, we have a lot of lava. That's never a good thing. While this action of owning the draft script, sorry, I have the honour of owning... stop saying that. I own the original draft script to Disappearing Act. And in that script, Skeletor's plan is similar but slightly different at the same time. Firstly, not only is Beastman present, but Triclops is present. They're all watching the view screen. And Skeletor's plan, which he declares, "I'll condemn all of Eternia to starvation," which is an incredibly cool line. But his plan is like something out of The Simpsons. That he has a large mirror somewhere under Eternia, and this large mirror rises from the ground and reflects the sunlight to destroy all the crops on Eternia. And what happens is, as he increases the heat causes a nearby volcano to erupt, and He-Man turns up and tosses a giant boulder, as one does, into the volcano. So that was how the episode was originally meant to start, although, you know, that was the very first draft, so it went through numerous versions until we got to this one. And here we have Skeletor and his invisibility helmet. No more Skeletor impressions. Sorry. So we have, once again, this shows that the series was very much towing the line between science and sorcery, which is...
Miss, when's the last time you saw the floor in here?
Where I come from, we never had to clean our rooms.
Well, you do here.
Clearly the whole idea of Orko would say, you know, where I come from, we never had to clean our room. It's like, what, Trolland's disgusting or something? I mean, they look kind of weird, but I can imagine that they've got pretty good home skills, like Orko live in filth and squalor. Regardless of how Orko acts, Lou Scheimer's delivery of the
Wand of glass, clean my room, sweeping through like a broom.
Even though from the draft to the final script there were many changes made to the dialogue, Orko's spells were actually kept intact. Is in the He-Man community mocking this next shot. I'll point out why already. It looks like Prince Adam is completely unaware of Teela. Like, he's just looking off into space. Even when she shows him the beeper, he's not even looking at it. Look at the beeper! No, he's refusing to. Now, the one problem about writing an episode in which Adam loses his sword is you have to justify why he has his sword out in the first place. Can you explain to me why he has his sword out at this point? He's coming to Orko's aid or something. I understand that, but why have... Help! Look at that shot of Prince Adam. I mean, I have to point out that throughout this episode, there's a lot of questionable animation. There's a heavy reliance on stock. It might be because it's one of the first episodes, I don't know. There's a heavy reliance on stock. There's some really weird drawings of all humanoid characters, or human characters. He-Man, Skeletor, Beastman, Adam, everyone. Right there. What is his name, do you think? I mean, he's got a giant O in his chest. That would imply he's another...
Got it, you can't...
So yeah, as Orko's about to declare, you know, without the power sword, as we see, Skeletor to sneak inside the royal palace. However, this idea is kind of totally pointless the longer the series goes on, because in later episodes, Skeletor just teleports. But yeah, Skeletor, using invisibility helmets, for the benefit. It'll look really well drawn and defined, but just completely out of whack with the style of animation we've seen up until this point. Also, Skeletor had a yellow nose there. I always love pointing out when Skeletor has a yellow nose. I always love this panning shot because I always want to know what that giant vehicle in the background does. It's huge. I'm ready. Oh, check this out. Watch Weird Orko. He looks so strange there. Or stranger than usual, I should say. And now we're going to go quest for He-Man, in which Zodak tells Man-at-Arms he must remain behind. Man-at-Arms simply goes, I understand, and travel into Eternia's past. For some reason, Orko's wand sent Prince Adam's sword of power into the past. And here we are, in a cave, in which Skeletor is standing in a cave. Uh-oh, Prince Adam's in trouble. But yeah, I mean, again, the style of illustration from shot to shot is very strange, unless it's stock footage. But I like this. Prince Adam says, what makes you think you can take care of He-Man? Skeletor's like, check this out. Zap. Boosh. I turned a tree to stone. It's like, yeah, but He-Man's got a sword. Can't he just deflect that? As He-Man once said, you shouldn't do that to a living tree. For some reason, I always love the way Skeletor says,
Laser bars.
Laser bars. Yes, Skeletor's got laser bars. Oh, and there's the stone tree. I've never noticed that before. When Skeletor walks away, the stone tree's still there. And here we see the Man-at-Arms beeper that Teela previously showed Prince Adam. Adam's like, oh, it's the beeper I somehow acquired from Teela, or stole.
Hey, maybe I can attract Stratos.
And this is such a weird plot device. So yeah, this episode is all about beepers and invisibility helmets. No, this is Heroes Some Time. And in that episode, as the robot was defeated by the evil warriors, it began malfunctioning Faker. At least that's, I believe, what we were all led to believe. Believe. And yeah, forget about He-Man being the most powerful man in the universe. What you're about to see now is the most nation. So Orko's holding Cringer. That's pretty impressive right there, because Cringer weighs a fair bit. Exaggerating there. But check this out. Check out Orko holding Cringer, any second now, with one hand. How does he do that? I mean, that just defies gravity as well. I mean, Orko is a magician, granted, but I think that's a bit of animation. They maybe should have gone back and said, future, back to the future. Uh-oh, Wharf Bats. So yeah, Adam's plan completely failed there. And here's Cringer and Orko in the past again. Orko's walk cycle seems to be wrong. He seems to be doing a little... He looks relatively okay, but again, he moves a bit weird. I mean, maybe I'm being very, very... If you look in the background behind Cringer there, they've actually got the night sky shown, but it's currently day, so I'm not sure what the background department were doing with this. Also, yeah, drops the Sword of Power. This next shot of Cringer grabbing the sword would later be reused in the episode One for All, in which Cringer once again rescues the Sword of Power, because guess what? Adam lost it, magically, like Prince Adam does. And the Trollin and the giant green, and I love this next giant. He's like the one that watches from behind the bushes. Here he comes. Oh, that sounds like dinner. And here we are back at the palace, and Man-at-Arms has achieved something pretty amazing in that he's built a He-Man robot. It's like, there's a slight flaw. And here comes one of my favourite lines and scenes from the entire episode. This is a fantastic...
The whole jungle after us.
I love the idea that Cringer's panicked cries for help have attracted like even more monsters, especially that last one at the end that runs along. It's a great comedy scene, even though there's this threat element that they could be eaten alive. Orko and Cringer are understandably like, wow, you built He-Man and he moves just like the other He-Man, thanks to the love for either Cringer or Orko to point out the flaw, like, yeah, He-Man doesn't make a noise when he moves. And Man-at-Arms is just like, leave me alone. God, it's an uncanny likeness, he really... And Stratos, yeah, can fire lasers from his hand. Stratos and his amazing laser hand. So yeah, here's Stratos reporting to Man-at-Arms. Actually, I never even thought, how does Stratos find Man-at-Arms, Orko and Cringer just wandering through the Banshee jungle? Poor Stratos, he's sent back to the palace to get help. We never see him again. I love the idea that Stratos is going back to the palace to get He-Man. And guess what? He ain't going to find He-Man. He could have found Robot He-Man. That would confuse Stratos. And random storyboards for an advert, Filmation were animating for Mattel that never saw the light of day. Now, in these storyboards, the attack track was the cartoon-based attack track. It was simply shots from this episode. You're about to see one from a distance. I'll point it out in a few seconds. There it is. This shot was actually in the advert. So it's like, well, what toy were Filmation and Mattel planning to advertise? Because as we know, this episode, Evil Seed. More on that in 22 episodes' time. Check me out, my maths. It's amazing. Yeah, Beastman. Look at Beastman there. Beastman doesn't look right either. This entire next scene really doesn't make much sense at all. Like, Man-at-Arms has got the Sword of Power, but he throws it. it lands outside the cage. Watch, dying outside the cage. In this next shot, Prince Adam's reaching for the sword and it's inside the cage. I think it's basically the previous shot was supposed to be outside the cage, but it just doesn't make sense. Like, it's like, why doesn't someone go and pick up the sword and hand it to Prince Adam through the bars? There's enough of a gap. I think this is one of those moments that from the script to the screen process, something has gone awry somewhere. Anyway, we're getting into
Power of Grayskull.
Cringer implies that he likes this part of the transformation.
This is the part I
Cringer hates the entire transformation sequence. The very phrase by the power of Grayskull is usually enough to send Cringer running for miles. Now let's all mouth along, kids. Rah, and I have the power to... I'm not doing any more Battle Cat impressions. I cannot do that voice. I can't do any voices. There was one line in the draft script in which He-Man, before he punched, topples over. Plus, it's rare you see much destruction in the He-Man series, but as Skeletor walks over, that's a lot of attack track destruction, although it's upright in the next shot, and the only thing dinged is the window. But Skeletor, at which point do you not realise this is a robot? He-Man, your face is looking slightly weather-beaten. It's like, no, Skeletor, his face is about to fall off.
What's this?
Every time I see that face, oh dear, that's what your robot He-Man looks like underneath. Yeah, given the attack track talks, it would have been nice to hear like the attack track after taking that tumble just go like, ouch. There's a pretty back and forward action-packed battle coming up here. I was never a fan of this, the way He-Man could just blow people over. It's just reminded me in one of the best loved episodes of the series to save Skeletor, He-Man with his breath creates a mini tornado. I'm not even sure how that actually works. I get to see...
Best. Well, just you and me.
Here goes Skeletor. Roller sculpt time. Just think an actor was paid money to roll over helmet. It's actually invisible to begin with. That doesn't quite make sense. Explain to me, please, people. Boo! It's a really good idea for an action scene, this, in which He-Man has to fight an invisible Skeletor. I don't think it reaches its full potential because He-Man has a really strange solution to it, as you're about to see. He basically gets to his feet and tells Orko to take his clothes off. It's like, what? Hang on, wait. There he goes, Orko. Orko's like, I'm actually wearing it right now. I'd rather... So yeah, it's a great visual. And recently, Skeletor hoodies have been officially made. So here we can see Skeletor was way ahead of the game. He was wearing hoodies 30 years before it was the thing to do. He-Man just simply crushes the invisibility helmet. But wasn't there another one? I shouldn't mention that plot flaw. So yeah, we get He-Man saving the day, utilising his brain, which is something that will pop up in the moral segment. But I like the idea that Battle Cat, Man-at-Arms, and everyone is like confused. Why are you not going after him, He-Man? We don't understand. It's like, because I slipped on that beeper. The beeper, the device for all occasions. It's ridiculous how much it gets used. And here come the wolf bats. The wolf bats are varying sizes, as I'm going to call them from now on. And we get a little bit of dissension from Beastman, evil Beastman.
Too bad, Skeletor.
Skeletor really shouldn't be scared of tiny little bats with wolves' heads on. So yeah, He-Man mentions to Man-at-Arms the beeper. It's like, that beeper, if it had never been invented, this whole episode would have been very bad for the heroes. You know, thank Man-at-Arms and his crazy devices.
Quick thinking.
In the draft script, actually, this episode ends with a completely different scene. Adam and Teela, and everybody's back in the Royal Palace, and Adam and Teela hear some noises coming from Orko's room, like before, like some crazy noises. Only this time, as they approach, Adam suggests, maybe we should let Orko deal with it himself this time, and they head off, and then that's the end of the episode. Although I do love this final shot where Orko's crossing his fingers and the way he winks to the audience. See, that's a well-drawn Orko. Also, I own the storyboards for this episode, and there are oddly two versions of this moral segment. The one you see here, and another in which Man-at-Arms is simply stood up talking to the camera. They obviously felt that this was the more natural moment, like, oh, you just caught me in the middle of my sky sled activities, but there's something I want to talk to you about. It's like, you know, we've just walked in on Man-at-Arms. And yeah, Man-at-Arms delivers the moral about, you know, using your brains over brawn. You know, doesn't help when you're getting punched in the face, but that, my friends, was Disappearing Act. An entertaining episode, but not really very good at all, if I was to be honest. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this latest offering from the official He-Man and the Masters of the Universe YouTube channel. As always, please feel free to leave comments below, especially nice ones. They're always encouraged. Like and share this video, tell all your friends about the channel, and if you have yet to do so, subscribe to the channel, because it's the most powerful channel in the universe. God, that's so cheesy.